In 1940, a senior Italian general preparing to invade a neighboring country was offered immediate reinforcements by his high command. He refused to take them. That commander was Sebastiano Visconti Prasca. Looking toward the Greek border that October, he envisioned an effortless campaign, ending with his own triumphal entry into Athens as a Marshal of Italy. Prasca held close ties to Benito Mussolini. He maintained that favor by adopting the hollow language of fascism, promising to use his iron will to liquidate and shatter the enemy. He assured Mussolini that an invasion of Greece would require minimal effort, describing the upcoming war as nothing more than a series of simple rounding-up operations. But the chief of the Supreme General Staff, Marshal Pietro Badoglio, saw the reality. He knew Prasca's plans allowed for too few divisions and warned that the general was talking dangerous nonsense. When Badoglio pushed to increase the troop numbers, Prasca quietly outmaneuvered him. He went directly to Mussolini and convinced the dictator that extra forces were entirely unnecessary. The leadership in Rome accepted the boast over the math. Political sycophancy and loud rhetoric were allowed to override objective military reality. Prasca's decision to handicap his own force was driven by a hidden, calculated logistical constraint. As a junior lieutenant general, military regulations capped Prasca's authority. He was legally permitted to command a maximum of only 5 divisions. If his invasion force exceeded that 5-division limit, he would immediately lose his position to a more senior general. To hold on to his authority, Prasca told a tissue of lies. He drastically understated the strength of the Greek military to ensure his invasion force remained small enough for him to legally control. The entire structure of a national military campaign was compromised before a single shot was fired, dictated by one officer's selfish drive to win a promotion over his rivals. In October 1940, Mussolini personally guaranteed Prasca's command, telling him he opposed all attempts to take the position away. The operation was greenlit. On October 28th, the Italian army launched its invasion from Albania. The force moving toward the border comprised roughly 8 divisions. Despite Prasca's promises in Rome, the reality on the ground was defined by haste and inadequate preparation. The advancing troops lacked winter clothing. Almost immediately, heavy autumn rains began to fall. The mountain roads became impassable to motor transport, turning the advance to a crawl. Freezing soldiers were forced to drag equipment by hand, while men and pack animals struggled to survive the punishing conditions. The steep, narrow geography of the region could not support the rapid, mechanized advance that had been promised. The physical reality of the Greek mountains instantly broke the illusion that an iron will was enough to win a modern war. On top of the terrain, the Italian army met an enemy they had not prepared for. The Greeks were powerful, highly motivated, and capable of mobilizing far more men than Prasca's reports had admitted. Within 2 weeks of crossing the border, the Italian offensive ground to a complete halt. The invasion did not achieve a swift victory. Instead, the entire mechanized column sank deeply into the freezing mud and stopped. Rome reacted to the failure by relieving Prasca of his command on November 9th. He was replaced by General Ubaldo Sodu. Lies told in the capital had a strict expiration date on the front line. They could not survive contact with a genuinely prepared enemy. The Greek forces repelled the invasion and launched a counterattack that caught the organized Italians off balance. By the end of 1940, Greek troops pushed the Italian forces backward through the snow, occupying a quarter of Albania and forcing a brutal retreat. The failure was so absolute that it forced Nazi Germany to intervene in April 1941, drawing German forces into the Balkans and changing the strategic landscape of the war. The propaganda of the era promised a swift victory. The historical record reveals a campaign defined by corruption and muddle. The hollow rhetoric of a guaranteed triumph was ultimately buried by the harsh, unyielding realities of the battlefield. It leaves behind a lasting question. How many national military disasters are born not from a lack of resources, but from the unchecked, selfish ambition of the men trusted to lead?